Hi, welcome to my instructional how-to video for building your own wax bullets. And you may ask yourself, why wax bullets? And my explanation is wax bullets are great for practice and in a safer manner than real live ammunition. Now, wax bullets, cautionary statement here is wax bullets will cause severe damage to anybody who is in line of the fire of a wax bullet. So if you shoot somebody with one, you can cause serious damage to a person. They'll dent tin cans, etc. And I would not want to be shot with one. But they are in general non-lethal. In general, everything's lethal. Too much water is lethal. So I put that disclaimer in. Anyway, wax bullets are great for practice, for like fast draw competitions, and you get instant feedback on your fast draw with hits on your target, and you do it in a safer manner. Because fast draw, if you start to fumble on your fast draw, you could start shooting with live ammunition. You could shoot yourself, somebody else, who knows what happens. But this is great for practice, for IPSC competitions or anything else. They're really good practice, and what they do is just use a wax formula that we're going to go over and powered by a primer, and that's it. Now we need to prep some things and do a few modifications, and reloading for wax bullets is a little bit easier than a regular metallic cartridge reloading. So essentially what we're going to need is some empty cases, and I have some 38 special. Typically this is revolver. Wax bullets are used with revolvers, and I've got a 38 special case, bunch of them that I factory ammo, and we're going to need to prep them. We're going to resize it, pop the primer, and we're going to increase the flash hole so that the primer, because there's no propellant charge that it ignites, it's actually the propellant charge itself is the primer. So we need to increase the diameter of the flash hole inside the case to make that work a lot better for the wax bullet. So we'll do that. Then we've got our stuff to make the wax bullets. We've got paraffin, and I just went to a craft store, bought some paraffin. It's very hard. Beeswax. It's a little bit different than paraffin. Formulas I always see include beeswax, so that's what I'm using. And then we've got essentially water pump grease or bearing grease. I've been told that petroleum jelly will work just fine as a substitute. Don't know, haven't used it yet, but we're going to use the bearing grease. So you combine the paraffin, the beeswax, and the bearing grease, and you put it on a hot plate here. I'm going to put it in here, melt it all, stir it up, and we'll then have our formula for our wax bullets. So we prep the cases, make the goop for the wax bullets, and then we load the cases by just shoving the wax bullet or the case into the wax formula. And there you go. And then we'll go have fun shooting. So now I want to prep the shells, the 38 special shells. And so I've got my trusty single stage rock chucker press here, and I've got my resizing die and decapper here. And so what we'll do, and I always lube my cases, and here I'm just going to use Imperial sizing wax, and that's really good stuff. And I just wipe my finger and just sort of rub the case real quick. Okay, we got one done. My handy loading block. I'll just throw that in so I know which ones I've done. And we just repeat the process. Over and over again. Okay, So I just still have lube on my fingers. That just makes it easier. It's a carbide die. Allegedly, you don't need to lube the case, but I always lube the cases because it makes it so much easier, especially in my progressive presses. Okay, and I'll do a bunch more of these and we'll come back in a second. So now what we're going to do is increase the flash hole size. I'm going to use a regular pistol primer that was made for this. Now there's some people who have drilled out the thing, the whole primer pocket here, and substituted a shotgun primer, like a Winchester 209 primer. I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is the easy way, and I'm just going to increase the flash hole for a 38 special or 357 magnum, a 3/32 drill bit will do it. If you've got a 44, 45 caliber cartridge, you'd want to increase the flash hole to like an 1/8 of an inch drill bit to use to route out that flash hole. So we're going to do that, and I've got my bench press here, and I've got my vise, which is absolutely necessary. And the vise is very nice because it has, if you can see, a V groove here vertically. It's also got one horizontally here. I don't know if you can see that. But the vertical one is what we're going to use because the cartridge will fit right in there, and if I had it the right height. Anyway, I'll put it over here. So you get the, there we got it on the rim there, so it's holding it. You get it into the V groove, and the vise will now hold that cartridge vertical, and it won't roll around on you. It's going to hold it right in there, and you put a little firm pressure. And we've got our 3/32 drill bit here, and we're ready to rock and roll and get that flash hole out. So we just go in. There we are. And we got a slightly bigger flash hole. And we just repeat that for the rest of the cartridges, and we'll come on back and we'll have the cases totally prepped, and we'll next mix the wax bullet formula. And the last step we'll do is the primer, because we want to have a hole here when we put the cartridge in the wax mixture. We need a little air to escape so that it doesn't build pressure inside the case here and just pop out that wax bullet. We don't want any positive pressure in there. Okay, I'm back, and I've got 20 cases prepped. I've increased the size of the flash hole, and I've opted not to do the shotgun primer, where you just route out the whole primer pocket and the flash hole and insert a shot shell primer, like a Winchester 209 primer. That's too much work for me. All I want to do right now is just get this stuff working. So I'm going to go for the easy way. I get caught up in the too much detail, and I start getting off on a tangent, and I love doing that kind of stuff, but let's keep it simple. So now let's make up our wax bullet mixture. I've got a 1/4 pound of beeswax. I've got my little handy postal scale here, and it's actually about 4.5 ounces, just a little over a 1/4 pound. I've got my regular pound of paraffin, and I just cut it with this huge knife and just chopped off a block. It came in a 1.5 pound block. I just estimated it. And here I've got 1 pound, 0.6 ounces, so that's close enough. So the next step is to melt this stuff. First we'll melt the wax, then we'll add our water pump or bearing grease. And we want to use, let's see, if I remember, it's 1/8 of a pound. Okay, this is a 16-ounce can, so 1/8 of a pound will be 2 ounces. So we'll just glob 2 ounces here on the scale. Put a little, and it's this green stuff. And we'll see if we can get it off the spoon. 2 ounces. Set that aside. Okay, so first thing we'll do is melt the wax. I've got a hot plate here. I've got my pan. Let's crank it up to medium right now. And this may take a while. So I'll come back when our wax is all melted up, and we'll see how we go. So now the wax has melted. And we can add the grease. Be careful. You do not want to splash this hot wax. Notice I'm wearing my safety goggles. Do not want hot wax poured into my eyeballs. Okay, so you just sort of stir the grease here until it gets hot enough. And I've got my little cheapo hot plate here, and that was set on medium. Now, what we want to do is get this grease has to get hot. Then it can disperse and we'll have the mixture all mixed up. And once this is mixed up and hot and all smooth and dissolved together, take it off the heat and we'll let it cool. At which point we'll be ready to load our cases into the cooled wax mixture. So I'll be right back after this has gotten all melted and mixed. Okay, we're back, and we've been stirring this for quite a few minutes. And the grease is pretty much broken up. It doesn't so much dissolve as it just sort of breaks up into very small particles here. And there's a few little chunks of grease here. I think I'd like to try is the just using petroleum jelly, Vaseline. Let's see if that gives similar results or dissolves a little bit better. But as you stir it, you know, it breaks up, and now it's a nice greenish color due to the grease here, bearing grease. So I think we're ready to pour it into a little bit larger pan, because what we want for the 38 cases, we want a depth of about a ½ an inch. And if we were doing 44s or 45s, we'd probably want a little bit more, like 5/8 of an inch. So I've got a 13 by 9 by 2 inch pan here, and we'll just pour this mixture, and hopefully we'll do it without scalding myself, 3rd degree burns. So this is a little slightly hazardous here because you're dealing with heat, hot wax. Definitely don't want open flames around here, because if you get I'd hate to have a wax fire in your house. Man, that would be bad. You definitely don't want water onto that. That would just make a mess. So let's just see if we can safely pour this wax without pouring it all over myself. Turn off the heat. And we'll just pour it in. And there is, you can see that little globs of the bearing grease. And let's just see what kind of a depth we get. Well, that's just about right at 1/2 inch. So got lucky. That was a good size pan to use. So the mixture amounts of 1 pound of paraffin, a quarter, let's see, was it a 1/4 pound of beeswax, and that 1/8 pound of bearing grease gave a volume that gives me just about exactly a 1/2 inch deep here, which is what we want for a .38 case. So that's excellent. So we're going to let this cool, put it on a level surface. We'll let it cool, and then we'll be ready to load our cartridges with the wax bullet material. Next step after that, then we'll have to put the primers in. So then we'll be all set. Cool. See you in a little bit. I'm back again, and we've got our wax bullet material as solidified, and it's cooled off, and it's ready to load into our cartridges. So I've got some cartridges that we've drilled out the flash hole, resized, and we have yet to put the primer in. So that means when we push this in here, the air will escape here, and we won't do a compress the air inside, which will push the wax back out. So we should just take a cartridge and, like a cookie cutter, just push it down. And it takes a bit of force. And there it goes. Okay. And so as our test one, you can see, I don't know if you can see it there. And I can push the cartridge actually through the wax, you know, get a better shot here. So you can see that it's full. And it's pretty stiff. Right, back with the persuader, and this will make it a little bit easier. And just push it in. And we just continue like that. And there's plenty of wax here. So we'll just re-melt it. When it gets too crowded, to fit more of this stuff in here. So after I put all these in, let's go and put the primers in. Okay, so I'll take care of these. And here you can see how it looks. I'll pull them out. A little tight in there. We just do that over and over again, and you've reloaded the shells with wax bullets. All right, we're back, and we're ready for our final step, and that's to prime our loaded cases. We've got the wax bullet loaded inside, and now we just need to add a primer. And I could add a primer via my rock chucker single stage press back there, but that's a pain to do. It works fine, but I've got nice handy dandy RCBS strip loading primer, hand primer. And so I'm going to use this because it's I like it using this better because you have more tactile feel as to when you seat the primer. And I'm going to be using small pistol magnum primers. Okay, and normally I don't use magnum primers, but here I've got a bunch of them, and for here that's going to give me just a little bit more oomph in the to put out the shoot the wax bullet. So let's get a close-up. Okay. Okay, so here's our shell with the empty primer pocket, and we've got loaded with our wax bullets flush with the top here. It's just a wax plug in there. And once again, I'm just going to use some magnum primers. So we just put that in the tool and squeeze. You can feel it seat. Boom, one done. So we've got a primer, and you can check to make sure that the primer doesn't extend beyond the top of the case head here. You want it slightly below, so that's good. And you can check that with a straight edge just by looking through here, and yep, I can see daylight there, just a little bit. Okay, on to doing the fun part, which is actually shooting our cartridges with the wax bullets. That's where the fun is. Okay, so while this seems to take a lot of time, once you get set up, it's real quick to shove your cases into the wax, and I've got a lot of wax left here. I mean, I got quite a bit. So I've got quite, you know, I'm sure more than 100 cases here I could fill up, and that'll give me a lot of practice time. So next step then is we're going to go outside and have some fun with the with my revolver and see how these things actually work in practice. Okay, here we are. There's the gun we're going to use, and got my earplugs in, and see what happens with the wax bullets on these empty targets here. Cool. Wax bullets penetrated the milk jug, and you can see that rattling around. So there is a bit of power behind that, and that's just primer. Primer did all that. Zero recoil. Very cool. Works quite well for practice and quick draw competitions if you're practicing for that. Take a look at the box. And the box, it went through the front and embedded itself in the back. Did not quite make it through two sides. So let's pull that one out. And you can see the wax bullet came out pretty intact. And you can recover this. So if we shot at a bed sheet hanging up, you could probably recover your wax bullets and reuse them. So let's load up a few more and see what happens again. Got another load. Okay, so we've loaded the revolver. Got 5 rounds up. And we're going to take some practice shots. See, we've already hit our target. We're going to do some more. And we had 3 shots right. Really good grouping here. Very close range, very accurate. And that went right through the back. And here's a recovered bullet. Okay, here we got just a towel on the logs here as a backstop, and if we look closely you can see the wax bullets bouncing off of it. So let's zoom in. And kind of put a hole through the towel here. So there's a bit of power behind that. That's just primer powered wax bullets.